You ever feel like something's watching you? Like, when the room's too quiet, the shadows feel too deep, and you swear someone's standing right behind you? Tonight, I'm sharing 3 real horror stories from people who lived through moments like that. These aren't urban legends. These aren't ghost stories your grandma told you. These really happened. And maybe, just maybe, they could happen to you. Let's begin. Story 1: The Eye Behind the Door. My name is Salem, and what I'm about to share with you still haunts me to this day. It happened about 3 years ago when I was living alone in a small one-bedroom apartment on the second floor of an old building, the kind of place that's always too quiet, where the walls seem to listen and shadows stretch too long. It was a normal night. Around 2 a.m., no TV, no music, just the soft buzzing of my phone and the distant hum of the streetlights outside. I remember the strange silence, a kind of thick, heavy quiet that made every little sound echo. I was scrolling through my phone when suddenly I heard a soft, delicate knock at my bedroom door. It was so faint, like someone barely touching the wood with their fingertips. I froze. Who the hell could that be? I lived alone, and my front door was locked. I stared at the door, waiting. Nothing. After a minute, I built up the courage to open it. Slowly, quietly, my heart pounding in my ears. I stepped out into the tiny, dark hallway. No one. No sound. No lights. Nothing but darkness and the faint smell of old wood and dust. I told myself it was probably the building settling. An old place like this makes sounds sometimes, right? I went back inside and sat on my bed. Tried to shake it off. But about 10 minutes later, again. Same gentle knocking. This time, it felt closer. Like whatever it was more confident now. I felt a cold wave crawl down my back. My room suddenly felt colder, like the air itself had thickened. I crept toward the door, trying to stay silent. And as I got closer, I noticed something strange. There's a small gap at the bottom of my door, maybe an inch or so, and in that tiny space, I saw movement. A shadow. No, something was there. I crouched down, holding my breath, and that's when I saw it. An eye. A single, wide-open, blood-red eye staring at me through the gap. It wasn't blinking. It wasn't moving. Just staring. I couldn't scream. I couldn't breathe. My entire body locked up. My mind raced. Am I dreaming? Is this real? Who's there? What the hell is this? Seconds felt like hours. Then, the eye vanished. No sound. No footsteps. No trace. I quickly opened the door. Nothing. The hallway was empty as it was the first time, but the air still felt wrong, heavy, like something was watching from just beyond the shadows. I left every light on that night, sat up until dawn, and to this day, I still don't know what I saw. Was it a person? Was it a spirit? Or something else entirely? All I know is that I was not alone that night, and whatever it was watching me. Story 2. The Hotel Room That Shouldn't Exist. My name is Adam, and this happened to me in 2017. I was traveling alone for work and had to stay the night in a small, old hotel in a quiet mountain town. It wasn't fancy, a faded sign, creaky floors, and a front desk clerk who barely spoke. But it was cheap, and I was exhausted. They gave me room 313. The hallway smelled of old wood and something metallic, like rust. As I walked down the corridor, I noticed the numbers on the doors went 309, 311, 315. There was no 313, but when I checked my key, it clearly said 313. Confused, I turned around, and there it was. A door where there hadn't been one a second before. It was old, peeling, with a brass number, 313, barely hanging on. I felt a sudden, heavy pressure in my chest, but I was too tired to care. I went in. The room was freezing cold, old furniture, a cracked mirror, and the bed looked like no one had used it in years. I put my bag down and noticed something strange. There was no window, no phone, no way out except the door I came through. I sat on the bed, suddenly feeling uneasy. The air was heavy. I could hear the faint sound of a woman humming, but it wasn't coming from the hallway. It was coming from inside the room. I checked the bathroom. Empty. Under the bed, nothing. But the humming got louder, closer. I turned toward the mirror, and for a split second, I saw a pale, thin woman standing behind me, dark eyes, a broken neck, and a wide, twisted smile. I spun around. No one. The humming stopped. I grabbed my bag, bolted out the door, and ran to the front desk. I told the clerk I needed to leave. Now, he looked confused. "Sir, we don't have a room 313. I showed him the key. It was blank. I left the hotel that night and never went back. And to this day, I don't know where I spent that night, or what was waiting for me in that room. Story 3. The House with the Locked Room. When I was a kid, my family moved into an old, oversized house that felt far too big for us. It had 4 bedrooms, 2 floors, a dusty attic, and a dark basement no one ever wanted to enter. But there was one room upstairs, at the very end of the hallway, that was always locked. My parents never talked about it. My older brother avoided it completely. It was like they pretended the room didn't exist. But I noticed things. We all did. At night, strange sounds would come from behind that door. Whispering, faint footsteps, the sound of something shifting inside. Once I gathered the courage to ask my father why it was always locked, but he just stared at me, pale and silent, his eyes dark with something I couldn't understand. I never asked again. One evening, while my parents were out and my brother was in his room blasting music, I found myself standing alone in the hallway, staring at that door. It felt different that night, as if it was calling to me. A cold draft slipped from under the door, chilling my bare feet. And then, a soft tap. I froze, my heart hammering in my chest. Another tap followed, this time louder, then a dragging sound, like something heavy being pulled slowly across the wooden floor inside. Paralyzed by fear, I stood there as the doorknob began to shake, gently at first, then more forcefully. My entire body screamed for me to run, and I finally bolted down the stairs, planting myself by the front door and refusing to move. When my parents came home, I told them everything. The color drained from their faces as my mother knelt down and grabbed my hand, her voice trembling as she told me, "Listen to me. Never go near that room again. Ever." I asked her why, but tears filled her eyes as she whispered, "Because it doesn't like to be disturbed." We moved out of that house a month later, left everything behind. But sometimes, in my dreams, I still hear it. The soft tapping, the dragging sound, the shaking doorknob. And in those dreams, I know. It's still there, waiting. 3 stories, 3 different nights. But one thing in common. The feeling of being watched when you know you should be alone. If you've experienced something like this, let us know in the comments. And remember, the night hides more than darkness.